Welcome to the Woman Unleashed journey. We are now on day number 6, which is the power of pleasure. Now, we've been looking at all the different feminine powers, each day looking at a different one. We started with presence, we moved into creativity, into nurturing, intuition. We just spoke about receptivity, and now we're moving into pleasure. Now, each one of these powers is meant to help you tune in a different way, to help you feel more alive. This is what a woman unleashed is. She holds these qualities. And so we're start going today with pleasure. What is a woman who is turned on in her life, who is connected to pleasure, not just focusing outward, but really, connecting inward? Where are you thinking about like pleasure and orgasm and play? Like, where are you on a scale of 1 to 10? Are you like, yes, like fully embodied, like in it, love it, on it? Or are you like that's like a part that's cut off? So my experience is, my story, I was abused when I was younger sexually. And so there has been, for me, a lot of that has been shut down or had been shut in for a long time. Also growing up for me, in the religion that I grew up with, there was also a lot of story of how women need to be covered up, need to be smaller to let themselves not stand out as much, that women should, not own that, not be in themselves sexually, right? Not to have that power. So there's all sorts of stuff that I've worked with over the years, and I'm still working with it in these areas. So, I work with my sexy coach. There are things that I do to like really bring on more turn on for me to be more in pleasure, more in joy, more in my body, and being in this space. So, looking at like where you are on a scale of 1 to 10, yeah, and then we get to look and see, okay, how can you start to open up to that? If you are already magically in it and you're like already turned on, great. Like, how can we bring more joy, more pleasure? There's something about the piece about pleasure that it almost can feel like selfish, right? That it's just about you. And yet think about what it's like to be living a life fully turned on in all ways, right? Like, I think I have a good friend, Jenny, and whenever I think of like sexy, beautiful, wonderful goddess who's in her body, I think of her, that the way she moves, the way she is, the way she's passionate in the way of being. And I know that for each of these areas, when we dim it down, it affects other areas, right? So noticing, if this is an area that you have shut down, and maybe for good reason, what are ways that we can start to play? So let's take a look at that today. Come on over. And let's take a look. So today's going to be a little bit more about journaling. Okay, I'm going to ask you some questions and invite you into the inquiry. So first, what brings you pleasure? So what brings you pleasure? Think about it. It could be your body, it could be your partner, it could be food, it could be movement. We started off with our first feminine power, and that was that of presence, and we talked about your senses. Maybe it's being your senses brings you pleasure. What are the things that bring you pleasure? So give yourself a little bit of time just to write. What brings you pleasure? Once you've spent a little bit of time with that, I'm going to invite you to look at what's your relationship to pleasure. What's your relationship to pleasure? Maybe even just saying the word feels a little bit naughty. Maybe you've been giving out for so much you actually don't know what it is to like connect to your own self-pleasure. Maybe it feels like I don't even want to talk about it. Right? Maybe it feels like I'm totally good and I want more women lit up all over the world. What is your relationship with pleasure? And then here's another question. It can be similar to this one, but I'm coming at it from a little bit of a different angle to see if this pops something up open for you, is to look at what turns you on, what lights you up. Okay? What turns you on, what lights you up. That's your inquiry. That's where you get to play, is to look at what brings you pleasure, what's your relationship to pleasure, and what turns you on, what lights you up. Yeah. So today I'm inviting you to choose one thing that brings you self-pleasure. Okay, we're not talking about helping other people. We're talking about ourselves. So what brings you self-pleasure, and just noticing whether this power feels empowering for you, or whether it feels like, okay, I want to skip this step. Where are you on the continue with that? Go ahead and share in the group, and let us know how you do on Operation Self Pleasure. All right. Big love.